Hey everybody, it's Barbara Ann. Welcome back to my channel, Straight Out of Context. We're going to dive right into this one. So plug your nose, take my hand, and in 3, 2, 1.
My interview with A&E's true crime blog is now live. Check it out.
Kaylee Anthony has a new Substack where she's charging people to give them legal advice. Even though she's not a lawyer, do you think that's a good thing? What do you think about that?
Not at all.
Are you still working with Kim Kardashian on
Oh yes, that is so right. Well, we are witnessing people in real time as one person who got away with taking the life of her mother, jealous because the person who got away and got acquitted of murdering her own 2-year-old daughter is coming onto TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Substack, and other social media sites, taking all of her clout. But what y'all don't know is that right here, Kaylee Anthony, if you go to her repost on her official TikTok, on August 18th of 2024, she was reposting, meaning that she's had this TikTok account for months, and you guys didn't even realize it. I didn't even realize it. But this is not uncommon. She's done this with Facebook and MySpace and Instagram and YouTube many times over the years, even stalking videos and content made about her or her daughter and commenting on them. Kaylee Anthony is the one woman on this planet that can give Gypsy Rose Blanchard a run for her money as far as sociopathic and narcissistic behavior and lying. Let me tell you, this is going to be entertaining to watch. But she also had to reshare and repost this right around the time that Kaylee Anthony, who was born on August 9th of 2005, would have been celebrating her 19th birthday. Instead of grieving nor celebrating the life, she was posting this.
Feral gym girls go to the gym to stay out of jail. And I will fight anyone on that, because they're going, the whole thing with their screamy screams and they're ripping into the parking lot, that's because they're running on rage. They don't even need the pre-workout. They just like the tingle that it gives them. They're going to the gym so they don't kill someone, whether it be at work, a family member, a friend, whatever. Someone that pissed them off while they were driving to the gym on the way there that day. So
considering the fact that Kaylee Anthony literally murdered her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee Anthony, and got away with it, we should not be surprised by anything. But the fact that George and Cindy Anthony, her parents, have stated they heard rumors that she was working on something, meaning the Peacock documentary Where the Truth Lies. Her mother said this: "I never thought she would, because she had always told me that she was never going to exploit Kaylee's name. And I said, I'm not going to watch this crap." Meaning that she promised her mother, Cindy, that she would never exploit Kaylee's name for monetary or financial gain. Yet here she is doing exactly that, folks. And don't worry, I did the math so you don't have to. It has been 6,108 days since Kaylee Anthony died to today. And she only lived for 1,042 days in her short, young life. Kaylee Anthony killed her daughter, and she's failed her every single day since by lying, spending over 6,000 days since rewriting her truly horrible death, pissing on her memory and life, wiping away her dignity with her lies and her innate need to narcissistically control her parents and all of society. Kaylee had a history of causing chaos between her mother and her father, and she did this for a very specific reason. Her tactic was to always try to drive her father out of the house with lies and BS, and to isolate and control her mother. Kaylee was only here on Earth for 1,042 days. You do the percentage of what a piece of shit she is. Her karma is being free, but never really being free of anybody knowing what she's done. Never being free at all. Society loving and caring for her toddler more than she ever did, truly advocating for the truth. Laws of man and God in all realms and languages don't apply when a baby wrongfully loses their life, because their birth giver was a selfish, uneducated bitch. I then end it with Kaylee speaks, and hashtag justice for Kaylee will prevail because God deems the ultimate punishment in the end. The worst place for Casey's guilt of causing her daughter's death isn't behind bars in an American female prison. It's having to live in her own head knowing she failed her daughter, and that above all, God knows. We all know. And she's not free or safe anywhere, and she never will be. Trust me when I say that Kaylee Anthony is not free to live her life and go anywhere and do anything, because if she does, she knows she runs the risk of being harmed by somebody for having taken her daughter's life. And that is worse karma for her than being locked inside of a prison where all she's going to do is what she did for the 4 years she was locked up. She's going to go around screwing guards and manipulating other prisoners and acting like she is the warden of the entire prison. Very similar behavior and stories that we heard from inmates who were incarcerated with Gypsy Rose Blanchard herself. Now I can understand why these two might be drawn to each other and why a friendship might actually come out of this. Who knows? She may even be able to use Gypsy's baby as a way to revamp her image as a non-child murderer. Could you imagine Zanny the Nanny, aka Kaylee Anthony, babysitting for Gypsy Rose Blanchard? What we are all going to witness in real time is the battle of the narcissistic murderer via social media. But let's rewind time and let's recap on what really went down with the trial of Kaylee Anthony and the case of her daughter, Kaylee Anthony. Kaylee Anthony was born on August 9th of 2005. On June 16th, my oldest daughter's birthday of 2008, at 2 years old, she came up missing. And that same exact day, my daughter had her second birthday. So this case has always been very personal to me. She comes up missing for over 31 days. Her father, a former law enforcement officer, George Anthony, is the last person to have seen his granddaughter alive and in the physical custody of his daughter, Kaylee Anthony. He had just started a new job and his wife was working day shift. She just happened to be at work. But he, however, was the only eyewitness to testify to the fact that he seen his granddaughter last with his daughter, and they were both alive.
Kaylee is missing. Bottom line is, I have nothing to hide. I got to speak with my daughter for the first time yesterday. She has been wanting to cooperate with authorities. She just doesn't trust the local authorities. But when the truth comes out, everybody will know that my daughter is innocent, that she has been more of a victim from the media and from the local authorities, almost as much as poor Kaylee is.
See, don't waste your call to scream and holler at me.
Waste my call sitting in, the jail
Whose
in
fault
where
is
bunks are?
Whose fault is you sitting in the jail? You're blaming me that you're sitting in the jail?
Not
Blame
my
yourself
fault.
for telling lies.
Something, whatever's going on, it's going to be found out. So why not do it now? Save
There's
yourself
nothing to
the
find
message.
out. There's absolutely nothing to find out, and that's even what I told the detective. Nobody in my own family is on my side.
Yes, they are. Nobody has said...
They just want Kaylee back. That's all they're worried about right now, is getting Kaylee back. And you know what? That's all I care about right now.
To streamline and make this very simple for everybody, I included a timeline of the entire Kaylee Anthony case and Kaylee Anthony case, where you can see the exact events as they happened in real time. I also have another one that I am going to add, and you will see it on the screen very soon, but we're going to go over this. As of June 15th, 2008, 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony was last seen alive with her mother, Kaylee Anthony, by her grandfather, George Anthony. He is not only the biggest key witness, he is the last person to actually witness his granddaughter alive in the custody of her mother, his daughter, Kaylee. Law enforcement would use George Anthony in the grand indictment for Kaylee Anthony. And of course, if you know about the trial and you have watched the trial while it was happening in real time, you would know that he did testify truthfully. 15 days later, on June 30th of 2008, a white Pontiac Sunfire that belonged to Kaylee Anthony and was registered in her father's name was found by a tow yard. The car was out of gas and left abandoned by Kaylee Anthony near a gas station. The tow yard would take it to an impound compound lot, where a month later, on July 15th of 2008, they would notify the person that the car was registered to, which was George Anthony. And he and his wife, Cindy, went to pick the car up. George drove the vehicle back to their home and placed it in their garage. He and his wife, Cindy, would call 911, making a complaint that the car smelled like human decomposition. George was a former law enforcement officer, and he knew exactly what human decomp smelled like. Cindy confronts Casey and gets her to come back home, where she makes a second 911 call and forces Casey to talk to the 911 operator, admitting that her daughter had been missing for 31 days. The very next day, on July 16th of 2008, Kaylee Anthony would be arrested. On October 2nd of 2008, Kaylee Anthony officially became a suspect in her daughter's disappearance. On October 14th of 2008, Kaylee Anthony is formally charged with first-degree premeditated homicide and first-degree child abuse. She also faced 4 charges of intentionally lying to police officers, providing false statements, ultimately obstructing justice, preventing law enforcement officers from being able to properly investigate the disappearance of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee Anthony, and preventing them from being able to locate her remains. Casey would not only intentionally lie to police and mislead them in other directions, she actually took them on a wild goose chase. On October 24th of 2008, human decomposition matter, deceased hair, was found inside of the white Pontiac Sunfire trunk, as well as 2 bags of trash. The state of Florida forensic lab also found extremely high levels of chloroform in the trunk of the car. On December 11th of 2008, 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony's remains would be found. They were less than a mile from her grandparents' home, where she had lived. If you were to leave the cul-de-sac where the Anthonys live and still live to this day and make a right on Suburban Drive, you would only have to go a short 2 blocks to find the wooded, swampy area where Kaylee's body was found. It is still a memorial marker today to mark the spot where Kaylee Anthony's remains were dumped by her own mother, Kaylee Anthony. Over 4 months later, on April 13th of 2009, the state of Florida would seek the death penalty for Kaylee Anthony in the death of her daughter, Kaylee Anthony. On May 29th of 2009, Jose Baez, the celebrity defense attorney who took on the case of Kaylee Anthony, threw out the theory and the defense strategy that Kaylee Anthony had panicked when she found her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee Anthony, had accidentally drowned in the family's pool. Although Jose Baez would never give any explanation for why Kaylee's remains were found, with duct tape wrapped around her entire skull, obstructing her airway, and a heart sticker over where her mouth would be. He would also offer absolutely zero explanation to explain how the eyewitness George Anthony saw his granddaughter alive and with his daughter leaving the house together for the last time, with Cindy Anthony working as a nurse during the day shift, and George Anthony having prior to weeks before taken a new job as a security officer not 10 minutes away. He was working afternoons. It is an established fact that George Anthony was at work. He had not taken Kaylee's body. He had nothing to do with it, and he was not running around aimlessly with her body in Casey's car. His employer, his pay stubs, and his time sheet actually prove that he was not doing that he was at work. Another key date was December 18th of 2009. Judge Stan Strickland stated that the death penalty would be up to the jury.
Do you have an opinion as to the manner of death in this case?
It is a red flag that when a child is not reported immediately to authorities, that's something we look for foul play. Besides the delay, besides the being found in a field decomposed, would be the duct tape somewhere located on the lower half of this face. There is no child that should have duct tape on its face when it dies.
Based on the skeletal condition of the remains, can you render a medical conclusion on the cause of death?
What I put was homicide of undetermined means.
Morning that she drowned in the pool. That's the newest story out there. Surprise, surprise.
When you find your baby face down in the pool, you call the police. You call an ambulance because you don't know if she's dead or not.
It was an odor consistent to what I'd smelled in the past when it comes to decomposition.
And that she killed her.
Any clues or anything that I should focus on at the house? Mom's house, your house?
Outside of maybe stuff on the computer, nothing I can think of.
On the computer.
You really look at the ebb and flow of that particular trial.
Can I have a break, sir? Can I have
A drink? Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess.
On July 5th of 2011, Kaylee Anthony was found not guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and child abuse. She was found guilty on 4 counts of lying to police.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
So when they said not guilty, I could hear 25 floors below the crowd outside. I could hear them gasp.
I mean, they just let a baby killer, an obvious baby killer, out of jail.
Murderer is walking out of this courthouse as we speak. Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee! Justice for Kaylee!
As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, verdict as to count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
That was some right there, because they were furious.
Appeal! 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 Appeal!
Had they charged Kaylee Anthony with manslaughter or second-degree murder, ultimately, the case may have resolved in another manner.
Maybe one day, and for the sake of that child, she will answer that question, what really happened?
If I could ask Kaylee Anthony a question, I wouldn't ask her what happened to Kaylee. I'm not going to get the truth from her. I would ask her, how do you sleep? How do you sleep each night? What haunts you, Kaylee? What did you do?
On July 17th of 2011, Kaylee Anthony was free. She was let go out of prison after she was given a credit of time served. As the most hated woman in America, she immediately went into hiding. She lived in a shared rental property of one of her defense attorneys for many years and even sought protection at a nunnery of a church. The world thought Kaylee Anthony would never come forward and tell the truth, and of course she still hasn't. But on March 7th of 2017, almost 6 years later, she would do her first and only interview with AP. If you don't know, AP stands for Associated Press. She goes on to talk about cops and how they lie all the time, negating her personal accountability and responsibility for her actions and the death of her daughter onto cops, but didn't stop her from later bragging about having stolen a sergeant from his wife and also his lover. Her disdain and her disgust for law enforcement officers couldn't have been that bad if she was carrying on a years-long affair with a sergeant. And of course, she does not tell the truth. She doesn't say anything of substance. And in fact, she goes on to say this.
Since she was accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter, saying she is still not even certain as I stand here today about what happened, but says, I don't give a about what anyone thinks about me. I never will. I'm okay with myself. I sleep pretty good at night.
Kaylee Anthony's behavior at her own trial was not only alarming, but very disturbing. She showed little to no remorse or emotional reaction, even falling asleep and giggling with her attorneys while they showed very disturbing crime scene photos of her daughter's body. The prosecution showed that in the days after Casey Anthony dumped the body of Kaylee Anthony in a woody swamp area, that she was doing things like getting a tattoo, which is Italian for beautiful life, shopping at Target, doing wet t-shirt contests with her boyfriend, who was a club promoter, partying, drinking, having intimate relations with her new boyfriend, and taking illegal substances.
I stand here today proud to be the grandfather of Kaylee Marie Anthony. I'm also standing here today proud to have Cindy by my side, to have Lee up here with me, to have Mallory, to have my mother-in-law, my brothers-in-law, my father. I wish my father was here today. My mother can't be here. I'm thankful for friends. I'm thankful for Sherry and Dennis. I'm thankful for everyone that's here today to pay tribute to a beautiful little girl who not only meant the world to me, but meant the world to my family, and so many of you that never got a chance to actually hug her.
In 2010, when Casey Anthony was still in prison, she sold the rights to all of Kaylee Anthony's photos for $200,000. In 2013, EquiSearch, a volunteer group nonprofit who helped search for her daughter in 2008, sued her to recover costs of looking for Kaylee Anthony's body. She settled out of court, agreeing to pay them $75,000. In the same year of 2013, she filed for bankruptcy, citing that she was over $800,000 in debt, still owing money to her attorney, Jose Baez, as well as Orange County Sheriff's Office. Casey Anthony certainly sparked a lot of debate and controversy internationally when she was acquitted. The jury did not need to know exactly how Kaylee passed away to be able to determine that her mother was responsible for keeping her alive, and failed to do that. However, it was the lack of being able to prove premeditation that is the reason why the jurors themselves have come forward and spoken about why they came back with the verdict the way they did. And don't worry, I'm going to show you all of that as well. But first, let's talk about how both Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Casey Anthony display narcissistic and sociopathic traits. They often display a grandiose sense of self, believing that they are actually beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, physically. They often exaggerate their achievements, their status, abilities, talents, and their intelligence level, although they largely are uneducated, oftentimes lacking a high school diploma or a GED.
He's no longer with us. And Casey was the last one that I saw with Kaylee. 1 and 1 adds up to 2, sir, in my mind. And no matter how you're trying to spin it, I'm upset because my granddaughter is missing. I'm stating true facts of what I saw, what I observed, and what I went through that day, and what my feelings were. Neither my granddaughter nor my daughter were in the trunk of that car. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't know if I could have dealt with seeing them back there.
All of these media appearances stopped when the allegations of abuse came up, correct?
I believe that, sir, was done through you, sir.
Sociopaths specifically derive great pleasure from hurting other people, physically, mentally, emotionally. They are power hungry. They exploit others, not only for pleasure, but for personal gain, whether it be materialistic or financial. They lack any real empathy. They are deceitful with absolutely no regard to the law. They lack remorse. They're often jealous and envious of other people. They oftentimes have a sense of entitlement, even over other people, especially relatives, family members, immediate family members. They often lie to their immediate family members, steal from them, manipulate them. They oftentimes find themselves in trouble with the law, committing felonious crimes. This is why we see so many people that commit homicide oftentimes have sociopathy or narcissistic personality disorders. They are so entitled that they feel like they can take the life of other people, infringing on other people's basic human right to life. They rely on their intuition and cunning tricks to get you where they want you and to get what they want from you. Sociopaths and narcissists alike are deeply broken inside, insecure, fractured, hollow. They're controlling and quick to anger, because they know they are not good enough. They know they're liars. They know they are bad people. They know they're frauds. They know they're thieves. Nothing hurts them more than being exposed and somebody being everything that they are not.
I got a drink thrown at me. This girl has been harassing me for a while. I have her cell phone number. If that helps.
Do you know her name?
Her name is Thelma Moya. Thelma Magali Moya. She goes by Thelma Moya. Yeah.
Okay. And what happened?
She verbally assaulted me, but physically assaulted me with witnesses. I'm still damp from the drink she threw at me.
And why did she throw a drink at you?
We had a verbal altercation outside.
Outside over there?
Yeah.
And elaborate, like what happened?
He dated the same person for a couple years. Malcolm Allison, who was with your department, one of your sergeants. Whether they're together or not together, she got upset that he had texted me. I let her know that he had, and she came inside and threw a drink at me.
They oftentimes pretend to be a victim of traumatic circumstances of which they were not victim to. They exaggerate and elaborate a fake victim narrative.
I've had really bad social anxiety for the last decade. Going to crowded places by myself is not something I feel comfortable doing anymore. I've had really bad social anxiety for the last decade. Going to crowded places by myself is not something I feel comfortable doing anymore. I've had really bad social anxiety for the last decade. Going to crowded places by myself is not something I feel comfortable doing anymore.
That she did not intentionally kill her. I think that she had used chloroform in the past to sedate or knock her daughter out so she could be quiet. And I think this time she gave her too much.
Even when exposed, even when cornered with the truth, they still will not accept or admit their faults and their failings. You will often see narcissists and sociopaths not only double down on the lie and the victim narrative that does not exist, they will oftentimes triple down on it. Gypsy Rose and Kaylee Anthony both are perfect examples of this.
To see if it fit based on the evidence that we were given.
So what convinced you and the 5 others to switch your votes and vote for not guilty?
I think everyone will tell you the same thing. It's just lack of hard evidence. It's just, like I said, the duct tape and the chloroform and things like that, you could, if you took a good hard look at it, you could kind of, there was a lot of doubt surrounding all of those certain things, so there's not enough to make anything stick.
So you don't necessarily think she's innocent, but you feel you don't have enough proof to find her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. I don't know either way. Like, I mean, obviously it has not been proven that she's innocent.
The defense in their opening statements said that Kaylee Anthony's father molested her repeatedly when she was young, and that's the reason why she kept the drowning of her child secret. Do you believe that she could have been molested? Was there evidence that she could have been molested by her father?
There was no evidence. None at all.
That convinced you of that?
There's no evidence that convinced me of that, no.
So you don't think she drowned, you don't think she was molested, so what the casual viewer of this trial might say is, okay, well, how come you didn't find she was guilty of murder?
Because it has nothing to do with what the defense presents. It's on the prosecution to prove what they brought charges. They have to prove with their evidence that those charges they can validate bringing those charges and that the crime was committed.
So you didn't believe the central points of what the defense told you, but
No.
you just felt that the prosecution didn't have enough evidence to convict.
Well, they had, like I said, they had good, strong circumstantial evidence, but at the end of the day, it was circumstantial, and there was not just one strong piece of evidence that said something definitively. Every piece of evidence could kind of said this or that, this way, that way. I mean, there were many different ways you could have gone with each piece of evidence.
George and Cindy Anthony are the only two truly advocating for Kaylee.
Cindy, August 9th marked the 16th birthday of Kaylee's birth.
That day it was extra hard for me. I got choked up when we were doing the balloon release, and I know it was tough because to me 16 is a huge step. She would have been walking into womanhood at that time.
This is where we keep Kaylee's ashes.
In 2022, Peacock did a 3-episode docuseries with Kaylee Anthony entitled Kaylee Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. It was reported that she was paid $85,000 to exploit her daughter's death and further lie about it.
See him standing there with her in his arms and hand her to me and telling me that it's my fault, that I did that.
Where the Truth Lies is directly in between the lines of her lies because her father was not there.
And I just collapsed with her in my arms. She was heavy. She was cold.
With a double jeopardy clause, Kaylee Anthony cannot be tried again for her daughter's death.
As I'm sitting there with her on my lap, just hysterical. Just staring at her, not knowing what to do.
Kaylee Anthony is lying when she claims that she was hysterical, yet describes herself as just sitting there staring, not knowing what to do.
And I don't know how long I sat outside. I don't know where he went.
He went absolutely nowhere but to work and back and was with your mother. You were with Kaylee.
Scared because I was physically hurt and I can't tell mommy what happened. She'll get mad at me. That's what I was told.
Another lie. She claims she couldn't tell her mom, but then she's saying that her dad told her she couldn't tell her mom because she would get mad at her.
The abuse one day just stopped, just before my 12th birthday. My brother started coming in shortly after I turned 12.
Even before Kaylee's disappearance, Kaylee was notorious for trying to drive a wedge between her mother and father.
Wasn't the same thing that happened with my father. My brother never raped me. No, absolutely not.
As a teenager, Kaylee even went as far as lying to her mom, telling her that she witnessed her dad cheating.
But you did tell your mom about Lee.
I did not.
Cindy and George Anthony both testified at Kaylee Anthony's trial that she would do things like this. George and Cindy Anthony got married on March 20th of 1981. This March, they will have been married for 44 years. Yet during Kaylee Anthony's trial, they both testified that they had split up over 6 different times. Not because of infidelity, but because Kaylee would convince her mother that George was being unfaithful, even when he truly wasn't. And it was said because Kaylee enjoyed having her mother isolated because she can easily manipulate and control her emotionally. When she had her mother all to herself, she not only controlled and ruled the entire household, she oftentimes got everything she wanted. This pattern of behavior shows that Kaylee Anthony, exactly like Gypsy Rose, has narcissistic and sociopathic traits. And not just some of them, they both display and check every single box. Lack of remorse, lack of empathy, impulsivity, emotional detachment, superficial charm, callousness, lying for personal gain, manipulating others, lack of accountability, not learning from mistakes, threatening suicide, trouble with responsibility, physical violence, grandiose sense of self, lying to law enforcement, feeling that the law does not apply to them, doing whatever they want with little to zero regard about other people and how it affects and harms them, victimizing others and yet darvoing everybody and gaslighting everybody into believing that they are the victim. We see this same exact behavior with Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a woman who spent 24 years of her life with her mother, pretending to be a paraplegic so they could get government assistance, SSI and SSDI checks every month, going as far as lying to medical professionals. So when Social Security or DHS obtains the records from the doctors, it reflects that she truly was paralyzed, even though she was not. Now the truth has come out that she truly does have a microdeletion of a chromosome, which causes severe muscle weakness, sleep apnea as a child, failure to thrive, microcephaly, and strabismus of her eye. Gypsy Rose Blanchard even said that she had cancer at one point, but we have seen her use, manipulate, lie, discard, and dispose of people in her life, including her own husband, Ryan Anderson, her own family, her own father, her own child's father, and now even her own baby, to paint a false narrative of victim turned victor, to sell a story to mainstream media to negate her responsibility for having committed first-degree premeditated homicide of her mother. We have seen Gypsy Rose make almost $3.8 million off of selling this victim narrative. Both Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Kaylee Anthony were facing the death penalty for first-degree premeditated homicide in the states of Florida and Missouri. Both of them had defense attorneys who would come up with a defense strategy playing victim, one with medical abuse and the other with sex abuse. But like the juror said, there was absolutely no evidence of this. In fact, quite the opposite. The evidence and the proof proves it's a lie that both of them have to forever live with because they can't change it now. But both of them derive great pleasure from lying and from the notoriety they get from it. Despite being almost 40 years old, Kaylee still gets off on trying to drive a wedge in her parents' marriage. She has zero emotional intelligence and still loves causing chaos in her family unit. George has always maintained that the day his granddaughter died was the day that his daughter was dead to him too. He knows that his granddaughter was alive and that his daughter had her. He and Cindy butt heads on this topic because she still has maintained some written communication with Kaylee over the years. However, George and Cindy are almost 44 years strong and still remain a united front against their narcissistic, sociopathic daughter. And despite her newest claims, trying to throw not only her father, but her mother and brother under the bus, her parents respond with a documentary of their own in 2024, where an FBI agent administers an FBI-approved lie detector test that is often used with military. When asked why Kaylee would do this all of a sudden, level these kinds of false allegations against her father and brother, Cindy said to make herself look like the victim. Instead of ... the interviewer said, which is ? And Cindy replies, responsible for whatever happened to Kaylee. He then asked Cindy, do you believe your daughter knows what happened to Kaylee? And Cindy says, yes, I believe 100% she knows what she did to Kaylee. This is a very big step for Cindy. This is the first time she's actually faced the fact that her daughter intentionally murdered her own daughter, a fact she was unwilling to truly face before.
I is the daughter the two of you raised, making the cruelest accusation against her father.
Because she found out that he was the main witness for the grand jury against her.
Because I believe my daughter should have been put in jail. I was hoping so. Absolutely, I was.
Hoping so.
That's right.
Exactly like Gypsy Rose Blanchard, we get to see the true Kaylee Anthony when she thinks the cameras and nobody else is looking or watching. When she figures out she cannot control, isolate, or manipulate her mother to further control, isolate, and manipulate her mother into getting what she wants, she gets extremely angry, mean, and hateful. And I'm going to warn you, in ways that only a narcissist or a sociopath would. This is extremely sad, graphic, and heartbreaking, but this is also very similar to the text messages that Gypsy Rose Blanchard and the private messages that Gypsy Rose Blanchard was sending to Nicholas Godejohn, among other men. Kaylee Anthony has the nerve to tell her mom this in a text message: "I am going to once again ask to come and retrieve my daughter's ashes, as well as more of her property and anything else of mine that is still at your house. I will be in town in 2 weeks, so let me know if arrangements can happen. Thank you." Cindy tells Casey no. She is not having Kaylee's ashes. Cindy breaks down on camera, saying that Casey only left bone, that her granddaughter was not whole anymore, and that's the only part that's left of her. Just a very small amount of ashes. Casey responds, "Stay with your murderous, adulterous, rapist husband." Notice how when she is talking to her mother Cindy privately and she thinks nobody is seeing or watching, she also does not mention anything about her brother. She also only responds this way when she is told absolutely no by the one person who always gave in to her and spoiled her. Not only is she unable to manipulate her mother any further, she then threatens to never reach out to her again, taking away any emotional or mental connection that her mother may have had with her, threatening to withhold any love, communication, or contact from her mother if she doesn't get what she wants. This is very similar to the behavior of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who we know when she was first arrested was manipulating her stepmother Christy and her father Rod Blanchard. The sheriff's department also documented that Gypsy had been manipulating other inmates, and we now know that over 104 intimate videos were sent from Gypsy to Nicholas Godejohn in their almost 3-year-long online relationship.
I didn't touch you or Kaylee. You need help. How dare you? Don't ever say that I don't deserve any part of her.
Watching somebody go through that kind of verbal, emotional, and mental manipulation really gives us a different insight. It also shows us a serious pattern of negative, impulsive, bad behavior. The extreme lengths that Gypsy Rose or Kaylee Anthony will go to get what they want.
You put her there.
George and Cindy Anthony both took a lie detector test, and as you already know, they have both passed. George specifically took 2, and he passed them both. Not only did he not touch his daughter or granddaughter in any kind of way, he also passed for not having had any part in his granddaughter's passing. The only person who didn't do a lie detector test or has never appeared on camera is Casey's brother, Lee Anthony. But kudos to Cindy and George for sticking by each other despite their daughter.
George, you deserve to be believed about that.
Yes, he does. And yes, he is believed. Most of society is intelligent enough to recognize that Kaylee Anthony murdered her own daughter, Kaylee Anthony. And for everybody that watched this happen in real time, as did I, know that it is because her father was the one eyewitness.
I don't know how you got here, but you need to be up out of here by 5 o'clock.
This beautiful little girl is Kaylee Anthony. She was 2 years old when her life was taken from her.
According to the prosecutor, according to the evidence, they believe that Casey had used chloroform to knock her baby out and then duct taped her nose and her mouth.
Casey has now joined TikTok to try to reinvent her image.
Yes, our justice system did fail this sweet little girl because Kaylee Anthony should be behind bars.
While her body was sitting there in the woods by herself in a bag, this was her mother. You were out getting tattoos while she was missing. You were out partying while she was missing. You're out partying now.
30 days. Her daughter was missing and not a sign of remorse on her face while she was out partying with different men.
Jury still found her not guilty. Not only did she walk, not only did she get her freedom when she should have got the needle, now y'all want to make her famous?
It's bad enough that she's able to walk around free as if she didn't do shit. Do not give her a platform to monetize off of that child.
The whole point of this is for me to begin to reintroduce myself. I'm doing this both personally for me, but in a professional capacity.
Casey has kept her comments off on her account,
Go back to wherever you were hiding in Florida.
My name is Kaylee Anthony.
Not a single one of us want to hear from you.
Rod knows. Rod knows she isn't a good person. Rod knows that she's not going to be a good mother. Let's be real.
I just want to know that she's going to forgive me for what I did in my past.
It was my life. And it's like mourning a loss sucks.
Not a monster.
Yes, Kaylee Anthony and Gypsy Rose Blanchard are both monsters. Besides thinking very highly of themselves, they both lie, manipulate, use, and they never tell the truth. They have both murdered somebody, and they both have used other people to get what they want. There's more than just a budding friendship and the love of the spotlight that these two share. They could actually benefit from being friends with each other. Not only could Kaylee Anthony use Gypsy Rose Blanchard to revamp her media image and get people to accept her, Gypsy can use Aunt Kaylee to babysit. I'm sure she'd be more than willing. I mean, it's not like she wants to get rid of somebody else's kids. She just wanted her own out of the way. But at the end of the day, they both can wear the title mommy murderer.
And the only thing that we can bank on being a good role model for this child, I'm going to say it, guys, I'm going to say it, is Aurora Grace. We know Gypsy isn't. We know Ken isn't. We don't know who's looking after the baby.
Aunt Kaylee will. She's been free since June 16th of 2008. Don't forget to subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and share.